Feel a little bit better about these? Okay. I do want you to meet me in Schoology. So this is yesterday's homework. So it's in the 1117 folder. I want you to go open that up. And let's talk through this. What angle corresponds to P? You can either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and tell me what angle corresponds to P. H. So everywhere I see a P, I'm going to put an H. And then what corresponds to T? G. So everywhere I see a T, I'm going to put a G. And then what corresponds to W? D. 1, 2, 3. So everywhere I see a W, I'm going to put a D. And those are your answers. P. Yeah.
Does the order matter?
Yes, the order 100% matters. Yep. If you got, and I think of it like the reason I put multiple circles around it is I think of P as a single loop. And so H is a single loop. So the one loops have to go together. And then T is a double loop and G is a double loop. So the T and the G have to go together. And the order does 100% matter. And you'll see that in the IXLs. If you haven't done the IXLs, they definitely, the order is going to mess you up. That's what makes me insane with those IXLs. So here is the reason why it makes a difference. Because M goes with B, so M goes with B. So I need to know angle M in order to set up Y's equation. And then T goes with G, so T goes with G. So there I can set up an equation. 4x minus 3 equals 45, because I know those two loop angles, the T and the G in the middle of my answer key up at the top, they have to go together. And then I know W goes with K. So 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. I don't have any information at K, but I do have something here. So how can I find M? If I know T and G are both the same, then is this 45? Can I find angle M? Absolutely. So I'm hearing two people simultaneously say add 45 and 41, and I get 86, and then I subtract that from 180. And is that 94? Did I do that math right? Okay. So then 94 is that one loop. So M goes with B. So 94 equals 11y plus 6. And then you can solve those and you've got your answer. But that's why the key up at the top matters. The order matters with those letters. Okay. And we're going to practice this today and tomorrow. And then Friday, I'll answer any questions and we'll take our test on it. Okay. And these, you got to notice too, this little congruent symbol. So when it says congruent, you don't match them up in proportions like we were doing yesterday. This is like we were doing last week. They just equal each other. So whenever you see the congruent symbol, you just set them equal. The next question has to do with vocabulary. So the first thing we need to do is translate this. E is the midpoint. It sounds like a crazy question, but what does midpoint mean? The middle. And is this segment BD or angle BD? Segment. So you need to be able to read that geometry notation so you can eliminate your bad answer choices. Does A even make sense if we're Finding the midpoint of segment BD? No, this is an angle, so that's garbage. I love it when I can cross nonsense out. It makes me feel very gratified. So then, wait, let me read this again. E is the midpoint of BD. E is the midpoint of BD. What can I eliminate here? E is the midpoint of BD. I can eliminate D because E should be the midpoint, right? And then what's better? What's more complete about B or C? B is more complete. What's different about B from C? These little, what do I call those? Could I call those congruent marks? So one of the other flat out stupid things about geometry is they give you crazy questions like this, where there's two right answers, there's just one that's more complete. You want to always choose the more complete answer. Okay. Here, similarly, we've got to translate this. So bisects means cuts in half. So AS is like the knife that cuts CT in half. Okay, so imagine AS is a knife. It's not going to move. It's not going to be broken or cut in half. Whatever the second thing in, the object of the sentence, that's the thing that's been cut. And again, this is a segment, right? So if AS cuts segment CT in half, is A a good choice?
No.
It is not, because that's an angle, not a segment. Is B a good choice? So let me go back. AS is the knife that cuts CT in half. AS is the knife that cuts CT in half. What? Exactly. This would be CT bisects AS. So again, the order matters. The second thing is the thing that's cut in half. So it can't be this one. This one, though, AS bisects CT. CT is the thing we're cutting. Is that what the congruent marks show? Yeah, so C is going to be our best answer. And then D is another garbage answer because that's an angle, not a segment. So as you go through the next couple of days of practice and then the test on Friday, talk to each other because I'm going to put you in breakout rooms, which I know I don't do very much. I'm trying to do more and more. And talk through all of this vocabulary because it's a lot of vocabulary. What is shown in the picture here? What's marked? The sides. So I've got side AN goes with side LC, and side PN goes with side CK, and side AP goes with side LK. So what's my choice? A, B, C, D. Yeah. What I'm given is side, side, side. Once you get good at this, this is so easy. But until you're good at it, you just have to practice until it's easy. And it can be super frustrating. What can I mark in question 6? Nice. So I've got an angle at Q and one that matches it at S. And I've got an angle at R and the vertical that matches it in the other triangle. And then I've got this side, right? And the side over here that matches it. So what do I have marked in this one side, in this one triangle? If I go around the perimeter, I've got an angle and then another angle and then a side that connects them or that does not connect them. So I've got an angle and a side that does not connect them. So what's the best answer choice? A, B, C, or D? Angle, angle, side. And if you happen to read that backwards, it's S-A-A. These are like biconditionals. You can read them front ways and back ways. It doesn't matter which way, because this would just be side, angle, angle, if you read it backwards. What about 7? What can I mark, or what is marked? An angle and 2 sides. So I've got an angle and 2 sides. Can I write it like that? That's not a thing in math class, right? So what order do I have to write it in? Perfect. SAS. What about 8? So you've got 2 loops over here, and they are offset, and this is what makes it a little crazy looking, but those 2 angles do match up because they've got 2 loops. So I've got an angle on the left that matches an angle on the right, and then I agree these don't line up either, and that's just to make sure you see that they're 2 different angles, and the way it's marked is crazy. So I definitely have 2 angles, so I need 2 angles in my answer choices, or I need not congruent. So I think we can eliminate HL. There's no right angle. We can eliminate the side ones. Can I mark anything else in that picture? Which side? The one that's in the middle. What do we call that? What's the word for that? Starts with an R. Yes, the reflexive side. So we can 100% do the reflexive side. So if I have that reflexive side, what's my best choice? You're correct. So if I redraw this triangle, just because I can't get another color right now, I've got an angle, I've got the side, and then I've got another angle. And in order, that would be angle, side, angle. The side connects the 2 angles. That's how I know the side is in the middle. So again, I agree these congruent marks are very confusing and they don't look like they're congruent, but they are marking it congruent. Number 9 is kind of a beast of a question. How'd you tackle number 9? It's a lot to do in it. What would you find first? The length. And which length would you find first? A, B, B, C, or C, A? Okay, so how do I find AB's length? I'm trying to find this length. Okay, so the point for B is 0, 0, and the point for A is 2, 4. And how do I use the formula? Square root? Do I add or subtract? Nice. So 0 minus 2 squared, which is 2 squared, and 0 minus 4, which is 4 squared. So I get the square root of 20. Did I do that correctly? And it says round to the nearest tenth. So if I do the square root of 20 in my calculator, what is that to the nearest tenth? It is 4.4. 4 point. Oh, wait, 4.4 or 4.5? Okay. So then do I want to find BC or AC? Okay. AC. So AC is going to be this one. Do I need to do the formula again? Okay. 4, 0. So AC is going to be x minus x. So 4 minus 2 squared. And y minus y, I started with a 4, so I'm going to start with a 0. 0 minus 4 squared. And I get 2 squared and 4 squared again, which is the square root of 20. So is that still 4.5? Okay. If you noticed, I drew this line of reflection right here. There's a line of reflection. Those two sides are the same, which means these two angles are the same, which is going to help us in naming it. What kind of triangle do we already know we have? Isosceles for the moment. So how do I decide whether it's equilateral or isosceles? It does depend on the last angle and the last side. So how do I find that light blue side, BC? Do I have to do the formula again? Or is there an easier way? If it's a straight line, I should just be able to count, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's horizontal or vertical, you should just be able to count. If we're not sure, we can always do the formula. So 0 minus 4 squared plus 0 minus 0 squared is just going to give me the square root of 4 squared, which is 4. So now that I've confirmed, I've got two sides that are 4.5 and one side that's 4. What kind of triangle do I have? And I always spell isosceles wrong. Isosceles, I think. These are just stamina questions. 4 questions in one. They're kind of a nightmare, but you just got to buckle down and do it. We all know the formula, so we should all be able to do the algebra. Make sure you're careful about your negatives, right? If I do a -2, then I'm going to get a -4, and then I'm going to get some weird answer. You got to put your negative numbers in parentheses before you square them. It should be. Yeah, it should be isosceles. You could maybe write acute isosceles. But I think it's just looking for isosceles. All right, number 10. Done, done, done. There was a typo. This was an A. I just changed it. So if yours says A, I'm sorry. As I was looking at it this morning, I realized. So why is L congruent to Q? Why can I say that? Are they vertical angles? I like that vocabulary. Vertical angles look like that. So N and N, like LNM, LNN, and P and or Q and P, I can make those vertical angles. Do I have that as a choice? Definition of vertical angles. So that one's your vertical angles. This one and this one. Why are L and Q congruent? They're given. And then what about M and P? I've done this. I've done this. What's the only other answer choice that kind of talks about angles? Kind of between B and C. How did you find that? Did you actually find the third angle, the measure of it, by adding them? Or did you know that two angles were congruent, so you know the third angle is congruent? What's a better answer there? Exactly. So you know this one. That's how you found that third thing to be true. If I know two angles, then I know the third angles. So what about LM, QP, LM? So that's this one, and QP, and LN, and QN. Well, why do I know all of those sides? And I might have to use something over again. Are they also given to me? Yeah, those are also given to me. So you can definitely use your answer choices more than one time. It's one of the things that makes these tests hard. And then the last thing, the triangles, is always either this one, like it's one of those 5 things that we know. When it says triangle such and such is congruent to triangle such and such, what's a better choice there? How do I prove things are congruent? I've got 5 choices. Side, 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 angle, angle, side, angle, 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 side, or hypotenuse leg. So what should go for number 5? E, absolutely. One thing you need to remember is angle, angle is only for similar. Angle, angle only works for similar. It does not work for congruent. Okay. So this is kind of all a review from what we did last week. This looks like a lot, but it really is an easy question. What angle corresponds to X? R. And what angle corresponds to Y? Y. They're called reflexive angles, right? Because they occupy the same space. X, by the way, is corresponding. I'm sliding the X onto the R. And then what goes with the Z? S. And those are also corresponding. I'm just sliding them down a line. So then what goes with XY? So XY is this whole long side. So what goes with XY? RY. And what goes with XZ? RS. So see how that key is almost more important than the drawing? Okay, so now we've moved into similar. We just transitioned from congruent to similar. So similar is like what we were doing yesterday. What did we do when we were given 2 sides of a bunch of triangles yesterday? We made what out of them? We kind of just did it up here. What do we do? What's that? We made a proportion, absolutely. And proportions are made out of 2 equal ratios. So we're just going to take this, and you just need to have something you always do. I always do small over large, but you could do large over small. You just have to be consistent. It's kind of like slope. So I'm going to do the small number over the large one for every single one of them. Okay, so 18 over 21, and 12 over 15, and 9 over 12, and 15 over 17.5, and 6 over 10. Now you just have to get your calculator out and do all that division and compare the decimals. So 18 divided by 21, I get a decimal, and then 12 divided by 15, and I get a decimal. 9 divided by 12, I get a new decimal. Luckily, we're all good texters, so our thumbs don't get tired. Which one of the ABCD matches the decimal you get for 18 over 21? Or which ones don't? D 100% matches. You get 0.857142857 not to be super specific or anything, right? So when you get questions like this, just figure out whether you want to do small over large or large over small. Find the decimal for each of your fractions and then compare them. Not hard. Just have to get the calculator out. So what would I do for 13? I can do it very similarly. You got to notice the word similar, so you automatically think proportion. So what do I do with the 20, the 24, the 42, and the 36?
Would you do 20 over 42 and 24 over 36?
So you want to do small and big and big. So if we want to go, we can either keep the triangles together like this, or we can do the smallest from each triangle. So if you choose the 20, because I like working with the small thing first, you either need the 24, because that's the other thing in that triangle, or you need the 36, because it's the small one in the other triangle. So let's do it both ways and see if it works. So 20 and 24, or 20 and 36. So this one's keeping the triangle together, and this one's keeping the smalls together, right? So then I need to go to the other triangle, I guess. So the 36. The 36 is the small, so it has to go next door. And the 24 is the small, so it has to go next door, which means the 42 needs to go down here. These are going to end up being the exact same thing, because if you multiply 20 times 42 and 20 times 42 and 24 and 36 and 24 and 36, you're doing the same math. Sometimes all of those choices are very confusing. So let me back up a minute and tell you exactly what I do. I would keep a blue shape and a red shape or a purple shape. And I would do these two next to each other. The 20 and the 24 is the blue shape. And then the 36 and the 42 is the purple shape. So I've got small over large and small over large. And I've got the blue triangle on one fraction and the purple triangle in another fraction. That's always the way I do it, if at all possible. So then you can either cross multiply, or you can just still divide and get the decimals. What is 20 divided by 24? It's 20 divided by 24. 0.83 repeating. And what's 36 divided by 42? And then a bunch of other numbers. Do those match? Absolutely not. These are not similar. If these matched, if these were the same, then it would be side, angle, side, because I've got a side and then the vertical angle and then another side. Because they do not match, these are not similar. Okay. So let's look at 14. How would we talk through 14? Exactly. So it's either going to be angle, angle, or not similar. Can I find the missing angles? Can I find C and find R?
Yes.
So do triangle sum, and when you have R and you have C, let me know what they are so I can write them in.
For the big triangle, I got 7.
I did too. That's perfect. Sweet. So if I have those two, did my angles match? I've got a 34 and a 34, and I've got a 79 and a 79, and I've got a 67 and a 67. So I think those angles match. So I've got angle, angle.